So that's where Jamie and Claire came from, you know, a man in a kilt and a woman who wouldn't shut up and talk like an 18th century person. And after that, you know, I mostly just did historical research and followed them along. But the thing was, since I was not telling anyone that I was writing this book, I felt perfectly free to do anything that I wanted. And consequently, I read a lot, I read everything. So I used any literary device or element that took my fancy. Consequently, no one has ever been able to tell me what these books are. You know, I have so far seen them sold as literature, as fiction. Some people think those are the same thing, and some people don't. Literature, fiction, historical fiction, historical non-fiction. No, really. They are sold in Foyle's bookshop in London under history, you know, the regular non-fiction section. I asked about this, and I was told at the time that Miss Kitty Foyle, who was the last of the family, was still alive and still in charge, and so Miss Foyle decided where books were shelved. Evidently she believed in time travel, so you know, I could be in the non-fiction. So historical fiction, historical non-fiction, science fiction, fantasy, again, some people think those are the same and some don't. Mystery. There is, in fact, a whole murder mystery inside every one of my books. It's just that it's not the main focus of attention, so people don't always notice that. But it is mystery. Romance. Military history. My books are actually sold through the Military History Book Club. And see, gay and lesbian fiction. Oh, really? And horror. No, in fact, I actually beat Stephen King for a horror award. You know, in the same year when I won the Corina Prize, I also won a Quill Award in America. And they had the award ceremony in New York at the Museum of Natural History. Well, it's a beautiful place, but they made everybody stand out in the foyer for a while having hors d'oeuvres while they set up the TV stuff down in the auditorium. And so I had worn, you know, one of my best outfits with the suede boots with the 3.5-inch stiletto heels. Well, after 3 hours of standing eating hors d'oeuvres and these, you know, by the time I sat down, I had to take my boots off. You know, so I put them under the table and took them off. I wore my comfortable boots tonight, you know, so I had to take them off. But so I was sitting there in my stocking feet, and you know, across the table from me was George R.R. Martin, you know, who's a very famous fantasy author. He was also up for the same prize I was. They had, for some reason, put this book in the category called Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. So I was up against George and also against Stephen King on the other side of the room. And so it was the very last classification to get a prize. And so I was sitting through the evening as they gave out the prizes, you know, wiggling my toes and thinking, should I put my boots back on? And I look at George. I don't know if any of you have seen George. He's a very nice man, but he has immense white hair and beard. He's very broad. And he was wearing a purple brocade vest. He also looks like an enraged Ewok. And so I was sitting there bursting on the other side of the table, and I was thinking, no, we're not going to win. You know, not against George, not against Stephen King. And so I didn't put my shoes on, and sure enough, I won. So I was obliged to scamper up on stage in my stocking feet. So the first thing I said, peering over the lectern, was, well, now you all know the terrible truth. I'm short. But it does at least allow me to say that I have beaten Stephen King for a horror prize. So consequently, you know, my books really can't be described. My first editor said, these have to be word-of-mouth books because they're too weird to describe to anyone, which is just about true. So I wanted to thank all of you for spreading the word to your friends and relations, because somebody must have been talking or you wouldn't all be here.
Yeah.